The Grand Hall of the Galactic Council stretched wide enough to hold representatives from 200 different worlds. Admiral Sarah Chen stood near the back, her blue uniform neat and simple compared to the elaborate robes and armor worn by other species. She watched Ambassador Marcus Webb speak at the central podium, his voice calm and measured as he proposed a trade agreement between human colonies and the Vryn Collective. "Humanity offers friendship and fair trade," Marcus said, his gray hair catching the light from above. "We believe peaceful cooperation benefits all species." A harsh laugh echoed through the hall. Overlord Vexthor rose from his seat, his scaled body towering over the podium. The Kthani leader was massive, with red scales and yellow eyes that showed no warmth. Behind him, other Kthani delegates stood, their claws clicking against the metal floor. "Peaceful cooperation," Vexthor repeated, his voice mocking. "The humans speak always of peace. They have been part of this council for 150 years, and in that time, they have built farms, not fleets. They trade goods, not weapons. They are soft creatures who know nothing of real power." Sarah felt her jaw tighten, but she kept her face neutral. Around the hall, other species watched the exchange with interest. Some looked sympathetic to the human position. Others, like the insect-like Zathran, seemed to agree with Vexthor. Marcus remained calm at the podium. "We believe strength comes in many forms, Overlord. Building rather than destroying. Creating rather than taking." "Pretty words," Vexthor said, moving closer. His presence was intimidating, exactly as he intended. "But the galaxy respects only true strength. Military might, the willingness to take what you need. Your species has 47 colonies across 12 systems. Your defense fleet numbers only 300 ships. You are children playing at being adults." "We defend what is ours and respect what belongs to others," Marcus replied. "Is that not the foundation of this council?" Vexthor turned away, dismissing him. "The council was built by species who understand power. Humans are here because you are harmless, useful perhaps for your farming techniques and medical research. But never mistake tolerance for respect." The session ended soon after. Sarah met Marcus outside the hall where crystal windows showed the space station orbiting a blue gas giant. "He's planning something," Sarah said quietly. "That wasn't just political posturing." Marcus nodded, his expression troubled. "I've heard rumors. The Kthani have been expanding aggressively for the past decade. They've absorbed 3 smaller species' territories already. The council did nothing. Why would they target us? We have nothing they need. We have resources. Farm worlds, water planets, mineral-rich asteroids. And more importantly, we're seen as weak. An easy victory to demonstrate their power." Marcus looked out at the stars. "I've sent warnings back to Earth, but the government doesn't want to believe it. We've been at peace for so long." Sarah knew what he meant. The long peace. 400 years since the last major human conflict. Entire generations had grown up knowing only cooperation and growth. War was something from history classes, from old videos and archived documents. "How long do we have?" she asked. "I don't know. Maybe months, maybe less." 3 weeks later, Sarah's ship, the diplomatic vessel Harmony, was traveling between human colonies when the emergency broadcast came through. Her communications officer, Lieutenant Chen, no relation, turned pale as he listened to his headset. "Admiral, we're receiving distress calls from New Haven Colony. Multiple signals. They're under attack." Sarah was already moving to her command chair. "Put it through. All channels." The bridge speakers crackled with chaos, screaming, explosions. A woman's voice, ragged with terror. "They're bombing the cities." "The Kthani are bombing the cities. We have no defenses, we're just farmers. Why are they—" The signal cut to static. Another voice, male, younger. "This is New Haven Orbital Station. We count 40 Kthani warships in system. They fired without warning, without communication. The capital is burning. I repeat, the capital is burning. We need more static." Sarah's hands gripped the armrests of her chair. Around her, the bridge crew sat frozen, stunned. New Haven was a farming colony. 2.5 million people, families, children. They had a small orbital station for trade and a few system patrol boats. Nothing that could stand against a military fleet. "Set course for New Haven. Maximum speed," Sarah ordered, her voice cutting through the shock. "Admiral, we're a diplomatic vessel. We have no weapons, no armor. If the Kthani are still there, set the course, Lieutenant." The trip took 6 hours. 6 hours of listening to broadcasts that grew fewer and quieter. 6 hours of watching long-range scanners show the heat signatures of burning cities. 6 hours of receiving casualty estimates that climbed higher every minute. When they arrived, the Kthani fleet was gone. New Haven's capital city was a crater. Smoke rose from dozens of impact sites across the main continent. The orbital station was drifting, its reactor cold, its crew dead. Sarah walked through the bridge in silence, looking at the images on the main screen. Fields that had grown wheat now grew only ash. Schools, hospitals, homes, all destroyed in a matter of hours. How many? She asked quietly. The communications officer's voice shook. First estimates say 2.3 million dead. Maybe 100,000 survivors in shelters and remote settlements. The Kthani used plasma bombardment, surgical strikes on population centers. Sarah closed her eyes. When she opened them again, something had changed in her expression. Her crew would later say it was the first moment. They saw the old Sarah Chen disappear, and someone harder take her place. Contact Earth, Priority Alpha. Tell them we need an emergency council session. Immediately, she paused, and tell them to prepare for mobilization. The council session happened 2 days later. Marcus stood at the podium again, but this time he showed no calm diplomacy. The screens around the hall displayed images from New Haven. Burned homes, bodies in the streets. A child's toy melted into slag. This is what the Kthani call a demonstration of power, Marcus said, his voice hard. 2 million innocents murdered. For what, to prove they could? Vexthor sat in his seat looking almost bored. New Haven was given opportunity to surrender. They did not respond. Actions have consequences. They were farmers. They had no military capability, no means to surrender or resist. Exactly, Vexthor said. Weakness is its own crime. We have claimed the New Haven system and 19 other human colonial systems. Humanity will withdraw from these territories within 30 days or face further demonstrations. The hall erupted in discussion. Some species protested the action, calling it barbaric. Others remained silent, fearful of drawing Kthani attention. The council president, an ancient Vryn named Selthar, called for order. The council must respond to this aggression, Selthar said. The council will do nothing, Vexthor replied, standing, unless the soft humans wish to fight. Where is your fleet? Your weapons? Your soldiers? You have lived in peace for so long you have forgotten how to defend yourselves. Accept your loss and be grateful we are satisfied with only 20 systems. Marcus looked at Sarah, who stood among the observers. She gave him a small nod. The human government requests 7 days to consider your terms, Marcus said carefully. Vexthor laughed. Granted. 7 days to accept reality. I am not without mercy. That night Sarah stood in her quarters aboard the station. A secure communication line opened to Earth. On the screen was General Harrison White, head of the Human Defense Directorate. The government has approved your recommendation, Harrison said, his aged face grave. We're opening the vaults. All of them. Sarah felt something cold settle in her stomach. All of them. Even the pre-peace archives? Everything. Strategic weapons, total war doctrines, AI combat systems. Everything our ancestors locked away because they feared what they'd become. Harrison leaned forward. 400 years ago, humanity almost destroyed itself because we were too good at killing. We chose peace. We chose to forget. But the Kthani have made their choice. Now we make ours. Awakening protocol? Sarah asked. Awakening protocol confirmed. Return to Earth, Admiral. You have a fleet to command. And God help us all for what we're about to remember. The transmission ended. Sarah stood alone in the darkness looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Kthani celebrated their easy victory. They had no idea what they had awakened, but they would learn. The galaxy would learn. Humanity would learn about themselves again. The long peace was over. The vaults beneath Geneva were old, older than the long peace, older than the United Earth government. They had been built during the last days of the final wars, when humanity realized that its capacity for destruction had finally exceeded its wisdom to control it. Sarah Chen walked through corridors lined with concrete and steel, her footsteps echoing in the silence. Beside her, General Harrison White moved slowly, his age showing in the careful way he walked. Behind them came a team of military historians, scientists, and engineers. All had been cleared for access to materials that hadn't been touched in 4 centuries. Your grandmother served in the last war, didn't she? Harrison asked as they descended deeper. She did. Third Pacific Campaign. She never talked about it much. Near the end of her life, she told me once that humans had learned to kill so efficiently that they'd made themselves the most dangerous thing on Earth. She said the long peace was humanity's greatest achievement, not because we became peaceful, but because we chose to be despite what we were capable of. They reached the bottom level. Massive blast doors stood before them, marked with warnings in a dozen dead languages. A biometric scanner flickered to life, ancient technology that somehow still worked. These doors have been sealed since 2187, Harrison said, the year we signed the Eternal Peace Accords. Every nation on Earth agreed to lock away its most dangerous weapons and knowledge. We kept basic defense capabilities but destroyed or sealed everything designed for total war. The doors opened with a groan of metal that hadn't moved in centuries. Inside, the vault stretched into darkness. As lights flickered on row by row, Sarah saw stacks of data storage devices, hard drives the size of buildings, optical crystals, even old paper documents in sealed cases. Strategic weapons documentation, Harrison said, pointing to one section. Nuclear, biological, chemical, everything banned under the Accords. Military AI systems, added Dr. Yuki Tanaka, the chief historian. Combat decision algorithms that could predict enemy movements with 98% accuracy. We shut them down because they made war too efficient, too cold. Ship designs, said Admiral Chen, no relation to Sarah. Dreadnoughts that could crack planets, stealth ships that could move through space undetected, kinetic bombardment platforms, all theoretical designs that were never built. Sarah walked among the archives, feeling the weight of history. This wasn't just weapons, this was proof of what humanity had been. Proof they had tried to forget. How long to review everything? She asked. Years to fully understand it all, Dr. Tanaka replied. But we don't have years. We're prioritizing. Ship designs first. Weapons systems. Tactical doctrines. We're sending everything to the military design centers and shipyards. The government has authorized full industrial conversion, Harrison added. Every shipyard that builds cargo vessels is retooling for military production. Every factory, every resource. We're putting the entire human economy on war footing. Sarah looked at a display showing ship designs from Earth's final wars. They were brutal things, all angles and armor, bristling with weapons that had names like Kasaba howitzer and relativistic kill vehicle. We're really doing this, she said softly. We're bringing it all back. The Kthani brought it back, Harrison corrected. We're just remembering what we tried to forget. Back at the Galactic Council station, Marcus Webb watched the political situation deteriorate. The Kthani had broadcast their victory across all channels, showing footage of New Haven burning. They called it the necessary lesson and warned other species about the cost of weakness. Several species had already begun increasing tribute to the Kthani, hoping to avoid similar treatment. The Zathran hives had ceded 2 border systems without a fight. The Plellan kingdoms had opened their trade routes to Kthani military vessels. Only a few species spoke out. The Vryn, who had known humanity longest, expressed quiet support. The Thana warrior culture themselves seemed disgusted by the Kthani attack on civilians, but no one was willing to fight. You must convince your government to accept the terms, Ambassador Selthar said to Marcus in a private meeting. I know the loss of New Haven is devastating, but further resistance will only bring more death. Perhaps, Marcus replied. Or perhaps not. What do you mean? There are things about human history that we didn't share when we joined the Council. Not because we wanted to deceive you, but because we were ashamed. We thought we'd left that part of ourselves behind. Selthar's 4 eyes studied Marcus carefully. What things? When humanity reached the stars, we'd been at peace for 2 centuries. But before that peace there were wars. Terrible wars. Wars that killed billions. Wars that poisoned continents. Wars that almost ended our species. Marcus stood and walked to the window. We didn't join the galaxy as a peaceful species that had always been peaceful. We joined as a species that learned to be peaceful, because the alternative was extinction. You're saying humanity has military capability you haven't revealed? I'm saying humanity has military capability that we deliberately locked away and tried to forget. The Kthani think we're weak because all they see is what we chose to show. They attacked us thinking we couldn't fight back. Marcus turned back to Selthar. They were wrong. On Earth, the transformation was already visible from orbit. Shipyards that had built 3 or 4 cargo vessels a month were now producing military ships at 10 times that rate. The designs were old, but the manufacturing was new, combining ancient weapons theory with modern production technology. Sarah stood in the command center at Geneva, watching displays showing construction across human space. Every colony, every station, every facility was working at maximum capacity. First combat vessel completed, an officer reported. UHSN Retribution. She's a heavy cruiser, pre-peace design, updated with modern power systems and computers. On the screen, Sarah saw the ship. It was nothing like the smooth, elegant curves of human civilian vessels. The Retribution was angular and predatory, built not for efficiency but for war. Weapons studded its hull. Armor plates covered every vital system. It looked like what it was, a tool designed to kill. More ships completing every day. The officer continued. Within 3 months, we'll have 500 combat-ready vessels. Within 6 months, 2,000. The Kthani have 10,000 ships in their armada, someone pointed out. The Kthani have 10,000 ships designed for fighting species that have forgotten how to wage total war, Sarah replied. We're building ships designed by people who knew nothing else. She pulled up another display, this one showing weapon systems being installed on defense platforms around Earth and major colonies. Magnetic accelerator cannons that could throw projectiles at a fraction of light speed. Nuclear torpedo launchers, particle beam arrays, electromagnetic pulse generators. The Kthani gave us 7 days, Harrison said. It's been 5. Tomorrow Ambassador Webb will deliver our response. What response? Sarah asked. Harrison smiled, but it wasn't a happy expression. No. The next day, Marcus stood before the Galactic Council. Vexthor lounged in his seat, confident and smug. Behind him, other Kthani delegates laughed and talked among themselves, barely paying attention. The 7 days have passed, Vexthor announced. Humanity will now formally surrender the 20 systems we have claimed. You have brought the documents? I have brought something, Marcus said, but not surrender documents. Vexthor's eyes narrowed. Then what? Marcus activated a holographic display. It showed the vault in Geneva, then images of ships under construction, then weapon designs, then historical footage from Earth's final wars, cities destroyed, fleets clashing, weapons that turned landscapes into glass. The council hall fell silent as the images played. Species that had thought themselves familiar with warfare looked shocked. The scale, the brutality, the efficiency of human self-destruction was beyond what most of them could imagine. This is what humanity was, Marcus said quietly. Before the long peace, before we joined the galaxy, we were very, very good at killing. We almost killed ourselves, so we stopped. We chose to be better. We locked away our weapons and our knowledge, and we built a new society based on peace and cooperation. Ancient history, Vexthor said, but his voice had lost some of its confidence. Not so ancient. 400 years is nothing on galactic timescales. And knowledge doesn't die, Overlord, it just sleeps. You attacked New Haven. You killed millions of innocent people. You thought we were weak. Marcus turned off the display. You woke us up. Threats mean nothing without action, Vexthor growled. Then let me be clear. Humanity rejects your demands. We will not surrender a single system. We will not pay tribute. We will not bow. Marcus's voice grew harder. Instead, we're coming for you. Not for conquest, not for territory, but to ensure that what happened to New Haven never happens to anyone again. You're declaring war? Vexthor stood, his voice rising. You? With your pathetic fleet of 300 ships? Against the might of the Kthani Imperium? We had 300 ships 5 days ago, Marcus said. We have more now. We'll have more tomorrow. And the day after. You wanted to see what humanity really is? You wanted to test our strength? Congratulations, Overlord. You're about to learn exactly what 400 years of suppressed military innovation looks like when it's finally unleashed. Vexthor laughed, but it sounded forced. The Council will in 3 months had passed since the declaration. 3 months since humanity had opened the vaults and remembered what it had tried to forget. The Kthani Imperium watched and waited, confident in their overwhelming numerical advantage. Overlord Vexthor sat in his command chamber, reviewing reports from intelligence scouts. The reports confused him. They showed human shipyards working at impossible speeds. They showed ships being built using designs that looked nothing like the slow, peaceful vessels humans had flown for the past century and a half. How many ships? He asked his intelligence chief. Current estimates say 400 combat vessels. More being completed daily. Their production rate is beyond anything we've seen before. 400. Vexthor made a dismissive gesture. We have 10,000. Their largest ship is what, 800 meters? Ours exceed 3 kilometers. This is still no contest. My lord, there's something else. The ship designs. They're not new. Our analysts believe they're based on pre-peace era human technology. From their final wars. Ancient designs, obsolete technology. You waste my time with this? The designs are old, but the manufacturing is modern. And my lord, we've studied human history from that era. They were remarkably efficient at warfare. Some of their theoretical weapons were never built because they deemed them too dangerous. Vexthor stood, his scales rippling with irritation. Send a patrol fleet to test their defenses. 20 ships. Have them probe the outer human colonies. If these new vessels are as formidable as you fear, 20 ships can retreat and report. If they're not, we'll know the humans are still weak. The patrol fleet jumped into the lambda serpentis system 3 days later. It was a small human mining colony. Population only 50,000, valuable for its rare earth elements. The Kthani commander, Captain Zormak, expected to find civilian ships and perhaps a few system patrol boats. What he found instead made him question his sensors. A single human vessel waited in orbit around the mining colony. It was massive. Nearly a kilometer long, its hull covered in angular armor plates. Weapon ports studded every surface. The ship's transponder identified it as UHSN Retribution. 1 ship, Zormak said, relaxing slightly. 20 against 1. Standard attack formation. All weapons online. The Kthani ships moved forward, their plasma cannons charging. At 200,000 kilometers, they opened fire. Superheated plasma bolts crossed the distance in seconds, enough firepower to vaporize any civilian vessel. The Retribution's defensive systems activated. Point defense lasers, small but incredibly precise, intercepted most of the plasma bolts. Those that got through splashed against armor designed to withstand nuclear blasts. The ship barely shook. Inside the Retribution's bridge, Captain James Okonkwo watched the Kthani attack with calm eyes. His crew, young and newly trained, looked nervous. Most had never seen combat. Most had been cargo ship pilots or station workers just months ago. Well, James said quietly, now we know their plasma weapons can't penetrate our armor. Interesting. Let's respond. Kinetic batteries 1 through 4, target the lead ships. Fire when ready. The Retribution's main weapons weren't lasers or plasma. They were magnetic accelerator cannons, railguns that could throw solid projectiles at a significant fraction of light speed. When they fired, there was no visible beam, no bright flash, just projectiles moving too fast for most sensors to track. 4 Kthani ships exploded in the same instant. The tungsten projectiles punched through their hulls like paper, the kinetic energy converting to heat so intense that the ship's interiors vaporized. Debris expanded outward in clouds of molten metal. Zormak stared in shock. What weapon was that? I saw no kinetic weapons, sir. Projectiles at extreme velocity. Our shields don't. Evasive maneuvers. All ships scatter. But the Retribution's targeting computer, based on pre-peace military AI, had already calculated their probable movements. More railgun rounds fired. 3 more Kthani ships died, their reactors breaching, their crews never knowing what killed them. Return fire. All ships focus fire on that vessel. The remaining 13 Kthani ships unleashed everything they had. Plasma bolts, missiles, particle beams. The Retribution took the hits, its armor scarring and burning but holding, and while they focused on the big ship, they didn't notice the smaller ones. "Missile boats report ready," James's weapons officer said. "Deploy." From behind the mining colony's largest asteroid, 6 small human craft emerged. They were barely 100 meters long, almost all engine and weapons, with minimal crew quarters. Missile boats, designed for one purpose: deliver nuclear weapons, then escape. Each boat carried 10 warheads, 60 missiles total. They launched in a coordinated wave, their targeting synchronized by AI systems that could predict where enemy ships would be 30 seconds in advance. Zormak saw them coming, but too late. "Intercept those missiles." The Kthani ships tried. Their point defense systems destroyed perhaps 20 of the incoming warheads. The other 40 reached their targets. Nuclear fire bloomed in space, each explosion equivalent to megatons, electromagnetic pulses disrupting shields and electronics. When the flashes faded, 6 more Kthani ships were dead or dying. Of the original 20, only 7 remained functional. "This is Captain Zormak to Retribution," the Kthani commander broadcast, his voice shaken. "We surrender. We request quarter under Council rules of warfare." James considered. These were the enemy. These ships belonged to the empire that had bombed New Haven, that had killed millions. Part of him, the part that remembered his great-grandfather's stories of the final wars, wanted to finish them. But that was the old humanity, the one that had almost destroyed itself. "Surrender accepted," James said. "Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Any hostile action will result in your immediate destruction." One Kthani ship tried to run. 1 railgun round later, it was debris. The remaining 6 complied. Later, in the Retribution's brig, James interviewed Zormak. The Kthani captain was uninjured but clearly in shock. "Your weapons," Zormak said. "They're nothing like what we expected. Our intelligence said humans were developing military capability. But this is beyond what any council species possesses." "These weapons are old by our standards," James replied. "Designs from 400 years ago. We've been improving them, of course. But the basic principles are ancient human technology." "How? How did you advance so far and then stop?" James was quiet for a moment. "We didn't stop because we hit a wall. We stopped because we were afraid of ourselves. My great-grandfather fought in the last war. He told me stories about weapons that could sterilize continents, about AI systems that made war completely automated and emotionless, about genetic weapons that could target specific populations. We developed all of this and more, and then we looked at what we'd created and realized we'd gone too far. So you locked it away." "We locked it away. We agreed as a species to pursue peace instead. For 400 years it worked. We built a society focused on creation, not destruction. We joined the galaxy hoping to find others who valued the same things." James's expression hardened. "Then you attacked New Haven." "I didn't. Your empire, your leader, your decision to test humanity because you thought we were weak." James stood. "You're going to send a message to Overlord Vexthor. You're going to tell him exactly what happened here. Tell him this was one ship. Tell him we have hundreds now with more every day. Tell him that every weapon his intelligence feared we might have, we actually do have. And tell him we're just getting started." The message reached Vexthor 2 days later. He watched the battle footage in silence, his advisors equally quiet. The efficiency of the human attack was frightening. The precision, the cold calculation. This wasn't the passionate warfare of species fighting for honor or glory. This was warfare as engineering, as mathematics, as pure, refined destruction. "This changes things," his intelligence chief said unnecessarily. "One ship," Vexthor said. "They sacrificed 13 of my ships, but we still destroyed one of theirs." "My lord, we didn't destroy any human ships. All of their vessels survived. They accepted Zormak's surrender and captured the remaining ships intact." Vexthor's claws dug into his command throne. "Then we send more ships. 100. 500. We have numbers on our side. With respect, my lord, numbers may not matter. The humans are fighting differently than any species we've encountered. Their weapons don't rely on energy shields or plasma technology. They use kinetic energy, nuclear weapons, electromagnetic warfare. Our ships weren't designed to defend against this. Then we adapt, upgrade our defenses. That will take time, months, perhaps years. We don't have years. Vexthor slammed his fist down. The other species are watching. If we show weakness, if we allow the humans to defy us, others will follow. The Zathran, the Plellan, even the Than. Our empire depends on the perception of invincibility. Perhaps, my lord, we should consider negotiations. The council could mediate. No. Vexthor stood, his full height imposing. I will not negotiate with prey species. If one ship is formidable, we'll send 50 ships to destroy it. If they have hundreds of vessels, we'll crush them with thousands. Mobilize the second fleet. 5,000 ships. I want them positioned at the human border within a month. And the humans can't. The Kthani First Fleet jumped into the Tau Ceti system with 2,000 warships, expecting to demonstrate their superiority through overwhelming force. What they found instead was a trap that had been 400 years in the making. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of her flagship, the UHSN Defiant, watching the enemy fleet appear on her displays. Her ship was positioned behind Tau Ceti's largest gas giant, hidden from immediate detection. Around the system, 500 human warships waited in carefully planned positions, each one placed based on calculations made by AI systems that could predict enemy movements with frightening accuracy. They're coming in aggressive. Commander Okonkwo reported from his position aboard the Retribution, positioned near Tau Ceti's fourth planet. No caution, no scouts. They expect an easy target. They think we're going to defend the colony world directly, Sarah said. Let them keep thinking that. How long until they're in position? 12 minutes until they reach optimal range of our trap. Sarah opened a fleet-wide channel. All ships, this is Defiant. Hold positions. Do not fire until my command. Let them come to us. The Kthani fleet moved toward Tau Ceti Prime, the main colony world. Overlord Vexthor himself was commanding from his massive flagship, a 3-kilometer dreadnought named Domination. He watched the planet grow larger on his screens, saw the orbital stations and the cities below. Defensive fleet, he asked. Scanning shows approximately 50 human vessels in orbit around the planet, his sensor officer reported, significantly outnumbered. As expected, they put their ships where they're obvious. Amateur tactics. Vexthor turned to his weapons commander. Prepare orbital bombardment. Target the 3 largest cities first. I want the entire human species to watch this. But something nagged at him. 50 ships seemed too few. Where were the rest? Human shipyards had been producing vessels for months. Intelligence suggested they should have at least 400 combat-ready ships by now. Expand sensor sweep, he ordered. Full system scan. Find their other ships. The scan began, but it was already too late. The human ships around Tau Ceti Prime weren't defending. They were bait, and the Kthani fleet had sailed right into the kill zone. Now, Sarah said quietly. Across the Tau Ceti system, human ships that had been running silent suddenly activated. From behind moons, asteroids, and gas giant shadows they emerged, not to engage directly but to seal escape routes. The Kthani fleet suddenly found itself surrounded by vessels on all sides. Admiral, they're boxed in, Okonkwo reported. All jump points covered. Good. Broadcast on all frequencies. Let's talk to Vexthor. The communication channel opened. Sarah's image appeared on every Kthani ship's main screen, including Vexthor's. Overlord Vexthor, she said, her voice calm and cold. Welcome to Tau Ceti. You came here to show us the power of numbers, to demonstrate that military might wins wars. You're wrong. On the Domination's bridge, Vexthor snarled. You're outnumbered 4-1. Your bravado means nothing. Let me tell you what humanity learned during our final wars, Sarah continued. We learned that the species with the most ships doesn't win. The species with the best intelligence wins. The species that understands their enemy wins. The species willing to do what's necessary wins. She paused. We've been studying you for 3 months. Your tactics, your technology, your weaknesses. You know nothing about your ships use plasma weapons powered by fusion reactors. Your shields are designed to deflect energy weapons. Your armor is thick, but your point defense systems are slow. Your command structure is centralized around flagship vessels. Your communications use a narrow frequency band that's easy to jam. Should I continue? Vexthor's confidence faltered. The human had just described the Kthani military infrastructure with disturbing accuracy. You see, Overlord, humanity spent centuries perfecting warfare, not just building weapons but understanding the nature of combat itself. We learned to gather intelligence, to exploit weaknesses, to turn enemy strengths into vulnerabilities. Sarah's expression hardened. You attacked New Haven because you thought we were weak. You're attacking Tau Ceti because you think numbers guarantee victory, but you made one critical mistake. What mistake? You forgot that humans are predators. We evolved as hunters on a world that spent billions of years trying to kill us. We learned to track prey, to plan attacks, to work in packs, to persist until the target falls. You're not fighting farmers and traders anymore, Vexthor. You're fighting what we used to be before we chose to be better. Sarah made a gesture. Throughout the Kthani fleet, communications suddenly went dead. The jamming was so complete that ships couldn't talk to each other, couldn't coordinate. Each vessel was isolated, alone with its own sensors and its own decisions. Engaging electronic warfare, the human jamming ships reported. Enemy communications disrupted. Target lock interference active. Then the attack began, but not the way Vexthor expected. The human ships didn't charge forward in a glorious battle. They struck from range, using those terrifying railguns that fired projectiles too fast to see. Kthani ships exploded as tungsten rounds punched through their hulls. Return fire, Vexthor ordered, but his commands couldn't reach most of his fleet. Ships fought individually without coordination, exactly as Sarah had planned. The Kthani plasma weapons tried to engage, but the human ships were too far away, beyond effective plasma range. When Kthani vessels tried to close the distance, human missile boats swarmed them, releasing nuclear warheads that overwhelmed point defenses. But Sarah had something else prepared, something she'd hoped she wouldn't need to use. The vaults had contained more than kinetic weapons and nuclear missiles. They'd contained things that even pre-peace humanity had feared. Biological warfare package ready, her science officer reported quietly. Sarah felt sick at the thought, but she'd made a calculation. Better to threaten and not use than to need and not have. Broadcast to the Kthani fleet, all channels. She knew they could still receive transmissions even if they couldn't send them. Overlord Vexthor, we have weapons we're not using. Biological agents tailored specifically to Kthani physiology. Nanomachines that could disassemble your ships from the inside out. AI-guided missiles that could hunt every one of your vessels across the galaxy. We have these weapons because our ancestors built them. We're not using them because we're trying to be better than what we were. She let that sink in. But understand this. If you force us to choose between our humanity and our survival, we will choose survival. Every time. We know what we're capable of. We've seen the horror we can unleash. We stopped because we wanted to, not because we had to. In the battle, the Kthani fleet was being methodically destroyed. Ships exploded or went dark as critical systems failed. The humans fought with efficiency that bordered on mechanical. No wasted shots, no hesitation, no mercy. Vexthor watched his fleet dying and understood, finally, what he'd awakened. These weren't peaceful traders defending their homes. These were apex predators using technology they'd refined over centuries of killing each other. The Kthani had military traditions going back thousands of years, but those traditions were about honor, territory, dominance. Human military tradition was about one thing: winning at any cost. My lord, we've lost 600 ships, his tactical officer reported. 800 more damaged. Our weapons can't reach them effectively. We're being slaughtered. Vexthor made a decision he'd never thought he'd have to make. Signal retreat. All ships jumped to hyperspace immediately. But when his ships tried to jump, they found human vessels positioned at every jump point, weapons ready. The trap was complete. Sarah's voice came through again. You're not leaving, Overlord, not yet. We're going to finish this conversation. You're going to watch what happens when humans stop holding back. For the next hour, the battle continued. It wasn't really a battle anymore. It was an execution. Human ships picked off Kthani vessels with cold precision. No dramatics, no glory, just efficient destruction. Finally, with only 200 ships left out of 2,000, Vexthor did something no Kthani overlord had done in 500 years. He surrendered. Enough, he broadcast. I yield. The Kthani Imperium yields. The human weapons stopped firing. In the sudden silence, Vexthor could hear his own heart's pounding. Sarah's image appeared on his screen again. I accept your surrender. Power down your weapons. Prepare to be boarded. But before we do that, I want you to understand something, Vexthor. We could have destroyed all of you. We have the weapons. We have the will. We didn't because we're trying to remember who we chose to be, not who we were. She leaned forward. But make no mistake. If you or any other species attacks humanity again, we won't stop next time. We won't hesitate. We'll unleash everything we've locked away and we won't feel guilty about it. New Haven taught us that being peaceful doesn't mean being safe. Now we're going to be both. The Kthani ships powered down. Human boarding parties, soldiers in powered armor that made them faster and stronger than any biological fighter, secured the vessels. Vexthor watched them move through his flagship with the efficiency of a machine, checking every corner, every system. The soldier who came to his bridge walked with mechanical assistance that let him move heavy weapons as if they weighed nothing. The armor was angular, aggressive, covered in sensors and weapons. 3 weeks after the Battle of Tau Ceti, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session. Every species sent representatives. The chamber was packed, with standing room only for observers. The topic on everyone's mind was simple but terrifying: what to do about humanity. Ambassador Marcus Webb stood at the podium, facing a gallery of alien faces. Some showed fear. Others showed respect. A few showed calculation, already planning how to use this new political reality to their advantage. Members of the council. Marcus began. 3 months ago, the Kthani Imperium attacked the human colony of New Haven without provocation or warning. 2.3 million civilians died. The Kthani then demanded the surrender of 20 human systems, backed by threats of further violence. He paused, letting the facts settle. No one interrupted. The Kthani delegation sat in silence, their leader absent, awaiting trial for war crimes. Humanity responded by going to war. In that war, we revealed military capabilities that surprised the galaxy. We won a decisive victory at Tau Ceti, destroying 1,800 Kthani warships and capturing 200 more. The Kthani Imperium has surrendered and agreed to reparations. Marcus looked around the chamber. Many of you are now afraid of us. You're wondering if humanity will become the next aggressive empire, if we'll use our weapons to conquer rather than defend. I'm here today to address those fears and to propose a new framework for how humanity relates to the galactic community. Council President Selthar spoke. Ambassador Webb, humanity has demonstrated military technology beyond what most council species possess. You used weapons that several member species have banned as too destructive. You speak of peace, but your actions suggest you're prepared for total war. How can we trust that humanity won't become what the Kthani were? Because we've been through this before, Marcus replied. 400 years ago, humanity was at a crossroads. We'd developed weapons that could destroy our own civilization. We'd fought wars that killed billions. We had a choice: continue down that path to extinction or choose something better. We chose peace. Not because we were weak, but because we understood the alternative. He activated a holographic display showing Earth's history. Images from the final wars appeared, causing gasps around the chamber. Cities in ruins, continents poisoned, nuclear fire, genetic weapons, AI-controlled kill drones. This is what we were, Marcus said quietly. This is what we almost became permanently. We stopped ourselves. We signed the Eternal Peace Accords. We locked away our weapons and knowledge. We built a society focused on creation instead of destruction. When we joined this council 150 years ago, we came in peace because we genuinely wanted peace, not because we had no other option. Then why didn't you tell us? A Thon delegate demanded. Why hide your history? Would you have trusted us if we'd arrived saying, hello, we're a species that almost destroyed itself through warfare, but don't worry, we're better now? We thought it was kinder to let our actions speak for us. For 150 years, we were peaceful neighbors. We traded fairly. We shared knowledge. We helped where we could. We thought we'd left our violent past behind. Marcus's voice hardened. Then the Kthani attacked New Haven. They killed millions of innocent people to prove they could. They thought we were weak because we were peaceful. They learned the difference between being peaceful by choice and being weak by nature. So you're saying humanity will remain peaceful? Selthar asked. Even with these weapons? I'm saying humanity will remain peaceful unless given no alternative. We don't want to be what we were, but we also won't allow another New Haven. Marcus gestured to the display which now showed the proposed equilibrium accords. We're proposing a new framework. Humanity will maintain a defensive military force. That force will be subject to council inspection and oversight. We agree never to be the aggressor in any conflict. We agree to restrict certain weapon systems to defensive use only. In exchange, we request 3 things. First, a permanent seat on the council with full voting rights. Second, resources to rebuild New Haven and establish a memorial for the victims. Third, recognition that any attack on civilian populations by any species will be treated as an attack on the entire council, with military intervention authorized. The chamber erupted in discussion. The proposal was bold, essentially making humanity the council's military protector while placing checks on their power. A Zathran delegate clicked their mandibles thoughtfully. You want to become the galaxy's defense force? That's a significant responsibility and risk. We're the species best equipped for it, Marcus replied. Not because we're naturally violent, but because we understand violence and choose not to use it unnecessarily. We know what it costs, both to inflict and to experience. And if humanity decides to use its military for conquest, another delegate asked. Who stops you? You do, the council does. We're proposing oversight precisely because we don't trust ourselves with unchecked power. We've seen where that leads. Marcus looked directly at the questioning delegate. We're asking you to help us remain what we chose to be, not what we're capable of being. The debate continued for hours. Some species supported the proposal immediately, seeing humanity as necessary protection against future Kthani-like aggressors. Others feared giving any one species such military dominance. Still others argued for restrictions even stronger than what humanity proposed. Finally, a vote was called. By a narrow margin, the equilibrium accords passed. Humanity would become the council's primary military force, subject to oversight and restrictions, with a permanent council seat. As the session ended, Marcus felt both relieved and worried. They'd won political victory, but the real test was yet to come, proving they could be trusted with power. On Earth, Admiral Sarah Chen attended a different kind of meeting. The Human Defense Directorate had gathered to discuss what to do with the knowledge and weapons they'd unsealed. Some people are calling for us to lock everything away again, General Harrison White said. Return to the long peace as if nothing happened. That's not possible, Sarah replied. We can't unremember what we've learned. Can't unbuild the ships we've built. The knowledge is out there now. Then what do we do with it? Dr. Tanaka asked. Some of these weapons are terrifying even to us. The biological agents, the nanomachine swarms, the AI combat systems that can wage war without human input. We built all of this in 3 months of panic. Now we need to decide what stays and what goes. Sarah stood and walked to a window overlooking Geneva. The city was peaceful, people going about their lives unaware of the discussion happening in this room. We keep what we need for defense, she said. Kinetic weapons, nuclear missiles, conventional military technology. We destroy the rest. Permanently this time. No vaults, no archives. Complete destruction. And if we face a threat that requires those weapons, someone asked, then we'll have to find another way. Our ancestors created those weapons out of fear and hate. We recreated them out of necessity. But keeping them permanently, that just guarantees they'll be used eventually. Sarah turned back to the group. We need to prove we're different from the Kthani. They built weapons to conquer. We built weapons to survive. Now that we've survived, we can choose what kind of species we want to be. The vote was unanimous. Within weeks, biological weapons stockpiles were destroyed. AI combat systems were wiped and replaced with limited capability defensive versions. The most terrible weapons from the vaults were eliminated completely. But humanity kept enough. Enough ships to defend their worlds and honor their council obligations. Enough weapons to ensure New Haven would never happen again. The balance between capability and restraint. A year later, on the anniversary of the New Haven attack, a memorial was completed. It stood at the edge of the crater, where the capital city had been. The structure was simple. A black stone wall 3 miles long inscribed with the names of every person who died that day. Sarah Chen stood before the wall, finding her cousin's name among the millions. She traced the letters with her finger, remembering a laughing woman who'd moved to New Haven to teach agriculture to children. "We avenged you," Sarah said softly. "We made sure it won't happen again." "I hope that means something." Behind her, Marcus Webb approached. "The dedication ceremony is about to begin." "I know. I just needed a moment." They walked together to the ceremony area, where representatives from dozens of species had gathered. Even some Kthani were present, members of the new government that had replaced Vexthor's regime. The current Kthani leader, a younger male named Korvan, approached Sarah hesitantly. "Admiral Chen, I wanted to apologize personally. What my people did was inexcusable. We thought strength meant domination. We were wrong." Sarah studied him. She could see genuine remorse in his eyes. "Your people are paying reparations. You've agreed to military restrictions. You're helping build this memorial. That's a start. No, but you can make sure it never happens again. That's what humanity is trying to do. Not just for ourselves, but for everyone." The ceremony